Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming this day after a holiday that happens to be a Friday. I want to thank you for being here for our last edition for this semester of the Intersecting Connections panel discussions. We're excited to be here as we kind of unpack what it means to be first, whether that's first generation or the first person teaching at a college or whatever. And looking at, as we were saying, you know, how's that it ran into me before it ran into me, and how we unpack that in a college campus and in our daily workplace. So, without me going into much more, I am going to hand this panel discussion over to our moderator today, who is Dr. Tanya Crabb with the CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services. Dr. Crabb.
Hey everybody, greetings and salutations. Greetings and salutations. So today we are going to talk about the journey that is education, that I don't even know what to call it at this point, the marathon that is the process of going to college and just how we got here, what we've learned since we've been here, and what are some things that might be important for other people to learn. So I'd like to start with the first question around college. So I know that I don't know about the rest of you, but I know that I had an idea of what college was going to be before I got here, shaped by myself only and several episodes of whatever television show I was watching at the time. So, but I'm curious for the rest of you, how did you expect, what did you expect the college journey to look like when you started it? And how is it different or the same from what you thought it would be? Whoever wishes to go first.
I I thought it was going to be high school with bigger classes and less support. And just some professor standing in front of a huge lecture hall, rattling off. I studied engineering, so equations and things like that. And not really having much of an opportunity to ask questions and stuff. So you better just be smart and hit the books and this kind of a thing. And I think that for me, the surprise was I made that true even though it wasn't actually. Right? I had tremendous resources available to me in the form of the faculty who actually do care about their students, and TAs and tutoring centers and all these different things, these places you could go if you're struggling. Uh, but because I had told myself that it wasn't going to be that way, I never sought any of those things out. And anybody that I knew before college who was seeing a tutor, there was something wrong with them. You went to tutoring to get fixed remediation, not just, well, I paid for it and I deserve as much instruction as I need. And so I didn't want to show weakness and I didn't want to show, but at the same time, I didn't want to get bad grades, right? And I wanted to be, I felt a lot of pressure from the family to kind of call with good news only, right? And so for me, that was probably the biggest. I had an expectation that I caused to be true. I didn't think I was going to have support, but actually there was plenty around me. And when I finally woke up and realized that, things turned around pretty quickly for me, actually.
So it sounds like you realized you had to create your reality, you know.
You know, that's a really great way to put it. Yeah, and I think we do. We all kind of, the lens that we bring isn't just something we interpret what we see with, but it also uh, affects where we look to begin with. And so I'll never forget the first time I asked a TA for help and they actually sat down with me kneecap to kneecap and answered questions. And I walked out of there understanding something that was completely confusing and then realizing how much time I was wasting. Right? I spent 4 hours banging my head against a problem. I go ask for help and they're like, oh, you missed a minus sign on step two. 30 seconds later, I understand the whole problem. And so it's really easy to kind of trick yourself into thinking you're far more lost than you actually are.
So part of the issue was the realization that you didn't have to have all the answers. That was the whole purpose of college, was to get the answers, and that if you asked the right questions, people actually wanted to help you find your way.
Yeah, and that's a really lovely way to say it, because I think that we live in an over measured educational culture, and everything I do is written down on my transcript, and everything I do is going to either haunt or help me for the rest of my life. And it took a long time to realize how untrue that is. Here I am. I teach courses now that depend on courses that I failed during undergrad and had to retake. Right? I failed one of the classes that I'm currently teaching and had to retake it 2 times. And well, thanks. Right? I something about the way that we do our bookkeeping and our scoring and our ranking and our constant calibration, and using those numbers to decide what kind of access we have. Oh, you didn't do well this semester? No tuition scholarship for you. See ya. At just the time that you probably need that support the most, because if you lose your funding, then you're going to start getting jobs that act as more distractions, right? And so we have this kind of reward punishment system implicit that is oftentimes reinforcing the wrong things. And now, from the other angle, it's really hard for me to teach sometimes, because I have students who are more interested in the right answer than how they got it. And that's a scary place to be, because instead of creating people who know how to do things or helping people just develop their skill, they're just answer hunting. And is this right? Is this wrong? And if it's right, I'm done and I move on. And that can just be really hard, because I don't think it gives us the permission we need to realize that learning looks like trying something that doesn't work and getting feedback.
Thank you so much for that, and also thank you for acknowledging the tricky matrix that feed into our identity as college students. Parts of it that are even outside of our control. Does anyone else want to share what their expectations were and how that aligned with the realities of college?
Well, for me, I had no idea what college was. I just knew that I was going. From a very young age, I was a reader, so I was reading everything. I grew up in Panama, Central America, and so I was feeding my brain. Like I knew that I didn't want to stay there. I looked around me and I knew that I didn't want that kind of life. And so I knew I was going, but I didn't know really what it was or how to get there or what it entailed. I just knew that if I could read about it, if I could read, I could understand, and I would get there. And then when I graduated high school, my dad was like, he's a Army veteran, big time. We're a big time military family, and he was like, so your choices are either you go to work full time, you go to school full time, or you get married, or you join the military. And I was like, nope, nope, nope. Guess I'm going to school because it came naturally to me, and I excelled at it. And so not only did I decide to be the first to leave my nuclear family, my country, but just to go all the way to the States to do that. I couldn't get far away enough from it because I wanted something new. I didn't want to be married. I didn't, as a Latina, I'm single, no kids, not religious, and that's like the antithesis of what Latinas are supposed to be. I'm supposed to have 6 kids now, and a dog, and a fence, and a husband, and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, no, I don't want any of that. And so when I left, my dad was all like, okay, go do you, but then go do you. Don't call me because that's your choice. And I had to eat all of those words and have long cry sessions and figure things out by myself because I went from Panama, Central America to Orlando, Florida in the 90s, which was leaving a country where everyone looked like me and everyone had, I grew up with all kinds of judges, police people, politicians who were Latin, female, in positions of power to Orlando, Florida in the 90s, which was predominantly white. And my campus was like a mile away from the KKK hub at the time. So I'm being introduced to all these weird things that I had no idea, no concept how they all fit in because I didn't grow up in that. And then my major was English, and so all my classes was like, how did you get here? It's like I applied just like you did. What do you mean? How did I get here? um, and so it was a constant fighting all of those social and cultural challenges that I didn't have to do prior to that, and not having the tools to understand that, oh, that's what discrimination is like in this field, and that's what they talk about when those feelings of inadequacy and people making you feel a different way than you are capable of feeling. And so I had to grow. Well, I would say I already had a big ego because, like I said, I was a voracious reader, and I understood things that were happening around me, but I had to develop a very solid defense mechanism. So I had this very great persona that I'm here just like you're here, and you're not better than I am, and I'm going to go further, deeper, harder, longer if I have to be. And just like Tony, I didn't have any concept of what tutoring should be. It was always the negative aspects of it. Even though I had served as a tutor and all of those things, and I understood that conceptually, but it wasn't conceptually for me, right? Because I'm supposed to know this. I'm supposed to go to college. I'm supposed to have these critical thinking skills. I'm here by myself. I don't have a support system. I'm going to figure it out. And it has been and continues to be a challenge, because we like to think, oh, we've evolved so much and things have changed so much, but our students are still facing the very same thing. We have not made it any easier for students to come in, to understand our environment in higher education, to know that it's not them, it's us, that there are places to help you with whatever it is that you need. And so, from the 90s to now, I don't feel a lot has changed. Um, and so it's an interesting dynamic. And I think that's why in our office, why we do the work that we do, that we try to break those down and make them a little more easier accessible to students so that they find us and use us and are in that space.
I love that you brought in the idea of expectations. So, when you think about first generation, a lot of people think the expectations is that are that you go. But so for some families, that's not necessarily the case, and you expanded this idea of expectations beyond our expectations for what happens when we get there to the expectations that we're even going to go there.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those internal struggles that we face around those expectations. And you also brought something that's really interesting to light, which is that as a first generation student, you may not have built in supports. And depending on your family's perspective on education, you may not get any. So you are in uncharted waters in so many very different ways. And without that additional family support, and then coming to a country, in your case, where you're in the minority, underrepresented, there's the whole gender piece that goes into it. Then comes all of those pieces around, do I even belong here? As imposter syndrome? Someone had a great definition of imposter syndrome. They said, is it really imposter syndrome if you're always told you don't belong here? you know, so I
But I
love
always, I always,
that.
I always flipped that though, because I was always that rebellious Generation X spirit, So I would come in and be like, "What do you mean I don't belong here? I got here just like you got here. I applied. I got the test scores. I'm here. I'm doing better than you are, Like, so I was always had that rebellious spirit. So I don't really think I never understood, and I still have issues understanding that feel of imposter syndrome. Because the way that I move in the world is like, and this is going to be bad, and I know it's recorded, but it's like, I'm pretty smart. I know I'm smarter than you, so I'm good. It's like I'm humble enough to know what I don't know, but I am super egotistical when it comes to you don't know more than me, and whatever it is I can go find out about. So there's no scale where I enter a space feeling like an imposter syndrome. I enter the space walking in saying, oh, I see there's these the cultures here. Okay, so I gotta play this card here. I gotta play that card here. Oh, you want me to speak elevated Castilian Spanish? Okay. You don't know Castilian Spanish? Okay. Do you want to speak street Panamanian? Okay. You don't know that either? So, I get in trouble. Like when I go to a restaurant and ask for rice and beans, I'm all like, un plato de arroz con habichuela. What's an habichuela? Un plato con arroz con poroto. What's poroto? oh, frijoles. So you got to find, what language they're speaking. So, wherever I'm at, I'm playing that card. So this idea of imposter syndrome is real hard for me to chew and swallow. Like I understand what it means, but I have no application for that for me because I'm like, I'm here just the same as you are. I have not been through any special programs to get here. And again, I think this is that rebellious Generation X, you know, I'm sorry, I'm gonna drop a couple F bombs in there, but that's just who I am. And I can't wrap my head around that concept of, imposter syndrome. It's a real challenge for me.
I absolutely love all of that. I want that to be transfused and like made into some sort of aerial form so that we can just disperse it widely. I hear you saying that, yeah, life has hurdles, but I brought my sneakers and I've been training for this my whole life. so,
Yes, yes,
so
ma'am.
I'm just gonna jump them, keep putting them up, keep putting
I
them up.
love
I'm gonna keep jumping them.
I love that you said that, Anna, because I was actually literally just having the conversation similar to that 3 days ago with one of the students on my trial team. And I'll leave their name out of it, but eventually saying essentially that, right? That yeah, you're first generation. Yes, you have obstacles. Yes, you have hurdles that some of your students, some of your colleagues may not. But there seems to be you're making a right instead of a left, meaning you're taking all of that, you're internalizing it, and you're deriving shame from it, as
Yes,
opposed to make the left. It's like, yo, you were born on third. I was born in the parking lot, and I'm standing right here with you. So
yes,
what's right? You want to dance? Let's dance. And the student just kind of looked at me, and I mean, Dr. Barlow knows, right? I showed her the food stamp in my office. Like, look, my degrees they're framed. They're in an office in a storage unit somewhere collecting dust. But the one thing that's on my desk is that $1 food stamp from when it was my mom and I on welfare. And I remember being in law school going up against kids from Harvard, from Yale. And the only thing I thought, and I think we're a similar age, and I'm 47, so I was born in the 70s, so it's that whole
yep,
Generation X stuff. And
yep,
I just remember being at Harvard, being at Yale in competitions, and the only thing I was thinking was, "Oh, you're gonna know my name by the time we're done with this competition, right?"
yeah.
It's not, but at the same time, I don't know if this was applicable to you, but definitely for me, and it ties into Tanya's question of expectations. For me, it was the TV show, A Different World, right? The spinoff from the Cosby Show. So that's kind of what I expected the college experience to be, right? Kadeem Hardison, Dwayne was my guy. I was like, oh, I want to be like him. Hated math, but I still wanted to be like Kadeem Hardison. Started school, and within literally 5 months from starting school, I had dropped out or academically withdrew, and I was leaving for boot camp because my dad sat me down, had a similar conversation, right? Going into college, told me, he's like, look, you're a smart kid, but you didn't go to class in high school when you were supposed to go. You're not going to attend classes in college when no one cares if you go. Like, no, I want to go. I want to go. I want to go. He's like, because I was thinking a different world. Like, it looked like a lot of fun, so I want to go to college. My dad said, okay, look, we'll pay semester by semester. And I was at CUNY, right, the City University of New York. It's like, you make a 3.5 or better, we'll pay the next semester. And if you drop below a 3.5, you're on your own. I was like, okay, that sounds fine. I was failing everything by November of semester one. And I approached my dad. It's like, okay, now what do I do? He said, you got three options. Very similar to what you just described with your dad. My dad sat me down. He's like, you got three. Drop out of school, get a job, pay us rent. You can't live here for free. We're not raising a bum. Like, okay, well, what's option two? Drop out of school, get a job, move out, pay someone else rent. Can't live here for free. We're not raising a bum. Okay, what's option three? Drop out of school, join the military, and grow the F up. It's like, okay. And I chose the military. Did my time, year and a half, came back. And this is where it ties in what Tanya was asking and what you just said, Anna, about once I kind of understood education and grappled with what that meant and what Anthony was talking about, being in love with questions rather than always having an answer. Then I'm also the first to admit that there was a very big chip on my shoulder, right? Because I knew I was smart enough to go to a Harvard, to go to a Yale, but the circumstances precluded me from even dreaming that big, right? Because dad was like, yo, I'm happy for it because I went back to school. Now I was running a 4.0, and Pop was like, yo, a deal's a deal. You drop below a 3.5, you're on your own. You got to figure this out. So I was paying my way through school with that chip on my shoulder that says, when I show up at a Harvard, at a Yale for a competition, it says, man, I'm just as good as you. I should be here. But I'm in a public school, right? Not out of the shame of it, but just that I'm out of public school. All right, you're going to know my name by the time we're done with this, right? So it's that chip that doesn't turn into shame. It turns into that motivation of, I'm going to show you I'm better than you, right? Like that. I'm going to make you think the only reason why you're at Harvard is because mommy and daddy can pay for it, as opposed to that you earned it, right? And that's just me. That meaning that's my own baggage. I get that. Those kids are probably, I'm sure they're very smart and deserving, but the ability to turn it into that internal drive of, no, I want more, I want better, and I'm not going to succumb to family pressure, societal pressure. And what Anna said and what Tanya, you kind of clarified is, as first gen, my parents very much valued education, but from as far back as sophomore year in high school, I remember hearing, not study hard so you can go to college. It was take the civil service exam so you can get a job at the post office. You can get a job at the police because you put in your 20, you get a good pension. And that was just never me. I have plenty of cousins who went that route. But I always wanted more. I didn't know what more was, but I wanted more. I wanted different. And then it was the military for me that kind of sent me back. And now it's just a completely different experience, right? From the it's a different world expectation to, well, that'll never be my world because now I'm here to hustle. Now I'm here to work. I got places to go. So yeah, that was the kind of the disconnect between what I expected and my reality. And now when I watch It's a Different World, I realized just how smart all of them were. Right? Like, yeah, they were hanging out, they were partying, but Kadeem Hardison's character, Dwayne, he was like this math prodigy, right? Somehow I missed all of that part when I was watching the TV show. I was just focusing on all the good times that seemed like it was going to have. But it was just that drive that I worry about my students now. I think Anna just said it perfectly, where I know what imposter syndrome is intellectually. I've read about it. No idea what it means in terms of actually ever experiencing it. And my students, I don't know if it's a generational thing or not, but just seem to really embrace that. Like, well, I don't belong here. I'm not good enough to be here. And I'm looking at them like, yo, that's just bullshit from start to finish. If you think you're good enough, then you're good enough. And if you don't think you're good enough, then you're not good enough. But that's because you're putting that limitation on you, not because external factors are worth a damn. They're not, right? So, but the one thing I do tell my students, which I think we could all agree with as first gens, is it going to be harder for you? Sure. Is it probably going to be, as you said, Tanya, more obstacles for you? Sure. So what are you going to do? Tuck tail and run, or are you just going to run faster, try harder? Right? I mean, to me, that's the only option you have. Right? As I have a son now, 7 months old. I'm already aware that his reality will be completely different than mine. Completely different, right? His mom's getting a PhD. I've got a PhD, multiple law degrees. So yeah, with him, when it comes time for college, even for high school, his upbringing versus mine are going to be night and day. Well, so what, right? So what I try to tell my students is somebody's got to be first gen. Somebody's got to do it, right? The first person's got to get it done, so get it done. Why can't it be you? Instead of deferring it another generation and then putting it on your kids, right? Like, why you just go get it done? So anyway, that's kind of my little diatribe. And then I rock my T-shirt, so there you go.
I need one of those.
I bought this just as a very quick aside. I bought this when I went to Harding in Texas with a friend of mine to go do some immigration work. We were doing it pro bono, and I'm not a big fan of Texas. I had heard all these stories, so I was like, okay, I rocked this. Like every day I was out there, I had a couple of different ones. It's like the whole, oh, you're gonna know my name. Like, you want to dance? We can dance. But anyway, that's what my little take in terms of expectations and versus my reality.
First
Just
of
a
all,
quick side note too. Like I tell my students, just based on that whole concept of imposter syndrome, right? It's like when you walk into a room, nobody else knows what you know or don't know. So you have two choices. Either you open your mouth and show everybody how dumb you are because you didn't do the homework, you didn't read the assignment, you want your social media clicks, or you stay quiet and listen to what's happening. And what you don't know, then you go read and research. So when you get back into the room again, you have a point of reference. And I share stories where I was the one who was the eager beaver to share what I knew was all kinds of wrong, right? And it's like, oh hell no. And then the reverse and why I learned it. And when I break them down like that, when I use my own personal examples, right? They'll come back and be like, I just used what you just said at work, and oh my God, it works. I'm like, yes, just walk in because nobody knows. You don't want to confirm the status of whatever that might be. Like, you just walk in the room like you own it, you know? And so that's what I leave my students with. And I just like, it's that hard, it requires work. Everything requires work, especially when you don't know it. And for you to expect to be in this space where people make you feel like you're an imposter, it's like you have drank the Kool-Aid and eaten the cereal of the fake it till you make it. And that's why you feel that way. And you don't want to put in the hard work. And they kind of look at me and I'm just like, I'm just letting you know. You take it how you want to take it. But yeah.
thank you both for that. Jason, thank you for your service. And we have quite a bit in common. I'm just discovering as you're talking. CUNY, military, City College, what?
My dad's a city college boy. I was a college of Staten Island.
Yeah. First gen, all up and through different world. Didn't even know college was a thing. I did or we did until a different world. I was like, wait, there's colleges where we can go. Like, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Yep.
Something you said that I want to touch on. One of the things I want to touch on is this idea of imposter syndrome. It's like wondering how you got into a club instead of just noticing you in the club. Like you are here. You're not an imposter because you've arrived. You are in the building. There are folks who can't get in the building. You are in the building. Don't worry about how you got through security. You are here, you know? And the other thing that I was thinking about is this idea of, well, are you gonna I saw this wonderful meme. It's like, are you gonna cry or are you gonna boss up? First of all, I'm gonna do both. It's possible.
Right.
It's possible to do both. It's possible to know it's hard and still do it, you know? That's not to say that it won't be hard. I think there is a reality that suggests that just because of the nature of not having the similar set supports, it might be more difficult. It doesn't have to be. So that means that you have to capitalize on your resources and let go of that piece of you that says that A, I don't belong here, and B, there's some shame in getting resources. My favorite quote is, a closed mouth does not get fed.
Mm.
You know, get what you need to survive, get what you need to succeed. Other people's opinions only as long as last as long as they are in the room.
Right.
You have your life to live. So, does anyone else want to share about their expectations versus their realities of college? Or here's another way to go. What bit of knowledge did you acquire along the way that A, would have been useful to you, or B, you've discovered would be useful to someone else in this space? So either question, expectations versus reality, or drop some knowledge bombs on folks.
Well, I was just thinking a little bit about what Jason and Anna were saying. First off, the quote that jumped into my mind was, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right.
You're right.
I forget whose that is, but it's not mine. But, and it's really important. But yeah, I didn't watch Different World, but it kind of sounds like what you were expecting was that there was a lot of fun to be had in college. And if I look around me today, what I see is very few people having fun. It's all about the struggle. It's all about the challenge. It's all about the hurdles, but not from the standpoint of it's fun to be pressed outside of my comfort zone. It's, I can't wait till this is over. Like, I don't want to be doing this, but I want the thing that comes after. And if, as a faculty member now, like, that's what I wish we could fix, is acknowledge the struggle, but realize that life is a journey, not a destination. And the day after you walk across the stage and get your diploma, you got to walk somewhere. And it's like every step of our lives can either be lived thinking about whether it's short term, oh my God, I can't wait till Friday's done so it's the weekend, or I can't wait till the semester's done so I can breathe again, or, I can't wait till I graduate. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait. And it's like, if we could get back to what you're doing today is worth doing, enjoy it. It's fun to not know. It's fun to be in a little over your head and then try and figure out what you're going to do about it. Right. I was talking to a student the other day and they were saying, my goodness, I keep seeing these statistics that say I'm never going to use what I'm learning here. 15% of what you learn in college, that's what you actually use on a daily basis, and blah, 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 blah. And for some reason, what I thought about was all the things they do at football practice that have nothing. When's the last time somebody halfway through a football game came out and put a bunch of tires on the field and made you step through them high step? Right. And yet, for some reason, the process of running tires makes you better at playing football. And I just think to myself, we need to get our students. We may have swung too far in the this is going to make your life better in the future direction, because that's true. That's a great sales pitch to get folks in the door. But then it's fun to run tires because running tires is fun. Like, it's okay to be faced with a challenge. People don't only run track and field and do hurdles. Right? I love that image, Tanya. That was so cool. They don't only do that for the end result of standing on a podium. Right? That's part of what drives us. But there's this other part of just loving where you're at and loving what you're doing. And doggone it, I wish that's the part. It sounds like Anna kind of figured that out. Right? I've got my own self-confidence, and you don't tell me who I am, I'll show you. And I'm going to have fun here, And there's so many challenges and things that people are facing now that it seems like, when I ask my students, what's the word that describes what you're doing? The answer is surviving, right? Why not thriving? We should be having some fun. We should go to the student union and bowl or play the foosball table. We should go to a party or two. We should be at the sporting events and yelling for our team, but we're not.
I piggyback off of what you said, Anthony, just now, and even earlier, your first go round in answering Tanya's question. For me, what I wish I would have known, or at minimum been more comfortable with, is what you were essentially saying about just enjoying the questions, right? Seeing college in a very real way as a means to an end, but as an end in itself, right? As the thinking, the growing, the learning. And I didn't know that like I said, I was failing everything. My first go round, when I went back, I saw college very as this, okay, I need to get a job now. I need to do something on the outside. And it wasn't until I took an elective philosophy course that and I had no background in it. Didn't do it in high school, didn't read it on my spare time. I just remember to this day, it was one of the Socratic dialogues speaking about the Euthyphro. And there's a question in there where Euthyphro is engaging with Socrates, and Socrates basically asks, well, is something right and wrong because the gods like it? Because if so, then why are we worrying about right and wrong? Let's focus on God's mind. On the other hand, is it right and wrong because it's right and wrong unless God likes it? If so, why are we worrying about God? Let's try and figure out what's right and wrong. And that just gobsmacked, just stopped me dead in my tracks. And by the end of that week, I had changed my major to political science, philosophy, and economics. And that then took me to law school route. And I just wrote my dissertation on that issue 2 years ago about just war theory, terrorism, and international politics. But it's still at the heart of all that research was that. And it was something I didn't embrace going in. Got it about halfway through, where the only times I was really excited in college is when I realized I didn't know something. That just meant, hey, this is a growth opportunity. I can go study this. I can go sit in the library and read this stuff and try to understand this stuff. So keeping this answer short, that would probably be my answer. Is that something I try to convey to my students very much. It's like, guys, when else do you think in your life are you going to have this kind of time to be sitting around reading stuff that you're interested in for no other reason than you're interested in? I'm a faculty member. I spend my days on campus, and I don't have that kind of time.
Mm.
Now I've got a 7-month-old. I for damn sure don't have that kind of time, right? So it's like, just take advantage of the fact that you're going to get through. Follow your heart, follow your passion. You're going to get those letters. You're going to get that BS, that BA, and then you're going to go on to something else, and it's going to start resembling work. The higher up you get, you'll still love it. You'll still be passionate about it, but now it's no longer a 4-year vacation where you're just kind of learning and growing. Now it's their deadlines, its expectations, and it starts to really resemble more of the work-life balance that we all just kind of have to deal with later on. But that was probably the biggest thing. And I'm lucky I got it around my junior year, sophomore year, when it clicked for me. It was like, okay, yeah, let me just enjoy this process of just learning and just studying just to study. So yeah, that's my answer on that.
Yeah, I think that's a real thing. I think what unites us is that this hunger for information. You know, we're always asking questions, always wanting to see what the answers are, and learning through that process. Not how the journey of it. I think is the thread that we all share. It's like I didn't want anybody to, as a bilingual person, my drive was like I didn't want somebody to translate something for me. I wanted to go read it and interpret it for myself. You know, I didn't want somebody else to chew it up and spit it up because I didn't know what their motivations were or what they were doing with it. So I wanted to go to the source and be able to read it for myself and make my own determination. And my fear with my students is that they don't read anymore. They don't want to read. They don't like books. They want somebody to tell them. And it's like, I can't tell you. You have to have that questioning of who you are, where you are, what the world is like, what you can do to make a difference in the world, what you can change about it. Not just, I want this degree to make this money.
Right.
And then what? And I wish if I would have. So the things that I learned early on was that I'm a lot stronger than I thought I was. And I've broken down a lot, in my academic journey and in my personal journey, but I got through it all. Mm-hmm. And every time I got up and got through it, made me believe I could do more, bigger, better, broader, farther, global things. But I don't think if you have that chance to get up, or if you just say, I'm done, I'm not doing this anymore, then you don't develop those skills, and I can tell you right now, like, don't ask me to do mathematical equations to buy a rug, because we will be walking on a bare floor, half of it, because, my math skills suck. But I know that now, so I know, okay, I can hire somebody to to get the tile for the house. I don't have to know everything, And so I wish I would have known that, because when I was younger, that those first math classes would floor me, and I didn't want to go back, and I was so terrified about it, But I learned what I could do, what I couldn't do, and be able to move on from that space. And then the other thing I wish I would have learned is that nobody else knows it either. That, we're all going through the same thing at the same time, and some people, are just not going to show that. Some people are going to drown in it, and other people are just going to skate by it. And that's okay. But to feel that that's going to be the one determining factor, I wish I would have known earlier that that's not it. So it's a wide man's playing field, and you just got to be willing to show up and play, and give it your heart. Because if you tap out at the first time that the ball hit you when you were trying to I'm horrible at sports too, but when they pitch you the ball and you hit yourself with a bat, and you're like, I'm no longer going to play. That's not a good thing, You got to get back out there. You got to go take that swing and take them big and take them often, and develop that fearlessness. And I don't know how we teach that. I don't know how. I think that some of those things are naturally ingrained, and you help to develop them or to temper them. But I don't know how to use those examples to teach the students I have today. Because
Mm.
some of the students I have today just aren't willing to pick up the bat after it hit them, and then they're like, this game sucks. I don't want sports at all. I wasn't meant to be here. And it's like, again, enjoy the part of the journey. Okay, so maybe I suck at baseball, but I met seven cool. Is there seven members in a baseball team? Oh, I'm gonna stop. Okay. I enjoyed meeting my teammates. I enjoyed learning something new. I got outside and got some sunshine. Look at the bigger picture, the roundedness of it, instead of just focusing on that one thing. And so, it's a challenge.
I love the baseball metaphor. Hopefully, you treated your concussion before you went back into the game. After you hit yourself with a bat. I think there's a misconception about the purpose of college. Yes, it's about the learning. Yes, it's about the education, but the learning that happens isn't just academic. It's about figuring out who you are, what you're meant to be, making connections with other people. So I agree with this idea that you don't want to have fun in absence of academics, but this is one of those opportunities when you get to truly explore parts of yourself in an environment that does not, dock your pay in order to do it. So if you have the opportunity, and that's the thing that I didn't learn until maybe year, I think two or three, like my first semester, my first couple of years of college, I had gotten out of the military and I just did not think I wanted to be around people. So I took mostly evening classes because I was working and that was that. And I didn't participate in anything. Like I came, I left. I was salty if you talked to me on the way out the door. I was mad if you asked an extra question. I just did not engage in the college process. And then about I think it was even my sophomore, maybe my junior year, I started to participate. I started to join clubs. I started to find enjoyment, and the enjoyment helped balance out the hard stuff. The enjoyment introduced me to resources and people who can provide me with support around the hard stuff. So I wish someone had told me when I started that, you know, there are two sides of a different world. There's the smart side and there's the fun side, and they can coexist. So it's important to take advantage of those opportunities, both personally and professionally, to grow, because that's really what it's all about. And that's what you're going to need when you get out. I mean, book smarts is wonderful, but if you can't hold a conversation or your emotional intelligence is horrific, you're still not going to get a job. So the ability to engage and interact with others, the ability to have a firm understanding of who you are, is also a buffer against the dangers that exist outside the college doors. So it's so important to use this opportunity to grow and not just survive, but thrive in the process, to live. Living is the goal of college. Living, learning, and becoming who you're meant to be is the goal of college, not just passing classes. And a lesson I did not learn until I was in grad school: you are not your grade. Okay? You're not your grade. If you get a C, that does not say anything about your character. It may say something about your ability to comprehend the material, and that could be how it's taught, to how you learned it, to how you may just need support. You are not your grade. An A grade doesn't mean that you're a magical unicorn. It really doesn't. It just means that you were able to comprehend that information, or that you had some insight in that particular avenue of knowledge. Let's not weaponize those grades. You are not your grade. Perhaps the most important lesson that I learned way too late. Well, not too late because I learned it. So
I feel like putting all of that together, and when Anna was saying about baseball, even, and finding the things to be interested in there, it points out something, and that is that I think being interested is a skill. It's not just something that naturally occurs. I don't think there's a concept in the universe that is naturally interesting or uninteresting. And finding who we are and choosing to become who we want to become, I think part of that is actually exercising the skill of deciding what to be interested in. And you can be presented with an engineering student presented with a book on poetry, and they can choose to see that as a complete waste of time and a distraction, and why would I be talking about this? Or they could see it as an opportunity to learn and to see the world and a different way of expressing yourself and a different way of understanding that may be valuable. And the I think maybe that's one of the skills that I developed as a student that I didn't realize I was developing was what you were saying about baseball. The ability to find a reason to give a damn about something that isn't necessarily a direct connection to where you think you're headed next on the brochure. And that ability to kind of separate the score you get on the concept from the concept. There are so many things that I'm interested in that I have started to learn about in undergrad that I got poor grades on that I read about all the time now. And there are things that I aced in undergrad that I haven't wanted to touch since. And I think that there's really something to that. And I think what you were saying about becoming yourself, you're right. Like, this is a crucible, but a really neat one. It's this opportunity to kind of choose who you want to become. And one of the biggest things I learned at a first gen faculty workshop actually was how to introduce yourself. And most people, when they introduce themselves, will say something like, "My name is Tony." In a lot of other languages, it's that too. I'm called this. People tell me that. There's an identity that's put on me from the outside. And someone pointed out the power in introducing yourself using the words, I am. I am Tony. And what you can think behind the scenes is, and I'll show you what that means. I own my identity. It's not something that people put on me. And I get to choose what that's going to be. And college is a really wonderful place to start exploring that, like you said, before they start docking your pay and the consequences become a lot more serious. It's a chance for me to explore around and figure out who I am and hone that skill of being interested in the things that line up with my passion.
I love that. I love that. Thank you.
Thanks yourself.
Oh, thank you to the wonderful panelists. I was wondering if anyone in the audience wanted to add or share or just check in on the things that they've heard today.
Well, I'd like to say thank you all, particularly those of you who are our first gens, right? And the reason I want to really thank you is because the deficit language that I have continuously heard over the last several months, if you will, as it relates to first generation students, really bothers me. And because while I am not a first generation student, my dad was first generation. And the fact that he was first generation, that was celebrated. Did it mean that he had that life was wonderful and great when he was a student? Of course not. But life was not wonderful and great when I was a student and I was second generation. So, you know, but anyway, I mean, I appreciate hearing what you said today, and that was one of the primary reasons why on Tuesday when we had the breakfast, that my comments centered around being first and what that truly means in terms of greatness and wonderment and that kind of a thing, because it really bothers me when I hear so many of us who work with students in general one, and then obviously with first generation students, when we talk about it and we embrace the deficit, and that just really and truly bothers me. And then with that, when we're talking about the imposter syndrome, right? I agree with Anna and Jason. I know intellectually what that means, but that is not something that I take on. I've never taken that on When I was growing up, it was kind of like you belong here, you know. Um, and don't let anybody even tell you any different. And I don't even think that that came into play as to questioning whether or not I belonged. Right? It is I am here, which is one of the things that Tony was talking about in terms of introducing oneself. I am, and I'm really glad that I kind of use that all of the time. And maybe um, I'm embracing some of that without even knowing it. But I just really want to thank each and every one of you all for being involved in this particular panel discussion. I mean, what a way to end a week. And a first June week at that. What a way to end the week. And as I was saying earlier, Friday after a holiday coming back, you guys did it up. So I just thank you. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Something I've been learning lately is that people have three basic needs: to be seen, to be heard, and to be understood. And you've given that gift to me today. I hope I've given it to y'all as well. And that we get a chance to do that for everyone in need.
Yes,
It's really wonderful. Thank you.
thank you. You have to me. Yes, you have. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jason and Tanya and everyone here. As for a Friday, it's like this was worth it. I
Yes.
had my doubts before. It's like Friday, what? But but thank you. I really, really enjoyed this one.
I also want to express my gratitude. I want to express my gratitude to the panelists. I want to express my gratitude to the students. You know, first, you trailblazer is what I think. When I think first, I think that is a wonderful, magical place. You're setting the bar. You know, you are so. First for me is you're forging ahead, inspiring others, realizing dreams, surmounting obstacles, transforming communities. And I want to talk about that piece. You know, as a first generation, you are now reimagining reality for others, whether you realize it or not. The people you come into contact with, the communities you came from, you're the embodiment of possibility. And I want to say that's whether you do remarkably well and end up like Oprah status or something, or whether you just took the risk. You know, by taking that risk, by making that move forward, even though there was nothing ahead of you, you didn't even know the path you were going to walk, and you took that first step. That is powerful. Never underestimate the power of your status as a first generation student. Far from a deficit, stronger than anyone could possibly imagine.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment, Tanya. For the students on the students' back, I absolutely echo that sentiment. Where just own it, right? Make it your own. To get where you are even now, I have no idea, right? The rest of the panelists have no idea what you had to traverse, overcome, deem insurmountable just through sheer pigheadedness. I'm not going to quit, right? And I love this quote. I didn't come this far just to come this far, right? Just
Yeah.
so you still got you just someone else's opinion of you does not have to be your reality.
Yes.
So if someone tells you you can't do it, I want you to hear the person's like, well, no, you can't do it. I'm still going, right? And now you might be right. The day I die, I may not have gotten it done, but that's on me. But as long as I've got breath, I'm still trying, and I'm not giving up. So I respect it truly. Like, and I tell this to Sarah, my wife, who's kind of kicking around here. She's trying to be very quiet. It's one of the things I love most about UNLV. Truly love about UNLV is the diversity, the disparity between socioeconomic. We lead the nation, I think, in diversity, and the number of first gens that I get to work with, right? And they come through the program, they'll come through the trial team, they'll come through some law classes. And I know this is being recorded. This might not be nice to say or politically correct to say, but I've lost count of how many students have come through and I've just talked to them, get to know them. Hey, so what are your goals? Oh, I'm just going to do this. Like, okay. And then halfway through the semester, I'm watching them, I'm paying attention. It's like, nah, there's a lot going on upstairs. You've got a lot more that you can offer this world. And I'm going to choose to believe in you until you figure out how to believe in yourself. So you're not going to do that. And I've actually told students, like, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to Metro. You're not going to be a fire person, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But you're doing that because someone told you to do that, not necessarily because I'm listening to you in class and I know what you want to do or what you're interested in. And the number of students that I've had go on to law school, grad school, who, when I first met them, was just, now I'm just here, I'm going to put in my time and then I'm gonna go do X, whatever X is. And it's like, nah, kid, you're not. You're gonna come see me in my office, let's talk about this. And now they're in grad school getting PhDs. One who's getting a neuroscience PhD in neuroscience, uh, untold numbers in law school, and it all just comes down to, in my opinion, someone else's opinion of you does not have to be your reality. Choose for yourself, but then embrace the flip side of that coin, right? I don't want to. It's not all flowers and puppies. The flip side to that is if you proclaim to the world, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, then you better be able, you better be willing, right, to walk through hell and back. That when the devil calls your name, smile at him and say, "Yo, I got shit to do, dude. Like, either keep up or get the hell out of the way," because you are taking on more as a first gen. You are taking on more than usually your immediate circle can influence, right? Once I graduated high school, I couldn't ask my mom about advice for education because my mom stopped at high school. Once I got past undergrad, law school, I was very much on my own and just kind of grappling, figuring it out. And something Anthony said at the very beginning is just be willing to ask for help. Right? Go find. I'm a big believer in don't reinvent the wheel. Go find somebody who's doing something similar to what it is you want to be doing. Go reach out to them and say, how'd you get there? What do I need to do? Hey, make it easier for yourself. It's something I tell my students all the damn time. So anyway, I Harriet knows, Dr. Barlow knows I'm passionate about this stuff. I'm hugely passionate about it. So it's easy for me to slip into these diatribes, but it really can be summed up by I'm proud of you. I don't even know you. I don't know your circumstances, but the moment I find out, yo, I'm here, I'm trying, and as Tanya said, I'm crying, but hey, the Invictus quote, right? The poem. My head is bloody, but unbowed. I'm still here. I'm keeping on. So I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what you've done so far, and I look forward to see how far you go in the future.
First is fire, man. First is fire. Burn it up. Burn it up. That's right.
What a wonderful way to close.
Yes,
Thank
it is.
you, everyone.
Thank you all so very much. This is one of the reasons why our Intersecting Connection series that we do with CAPS and housing and SDSJ, it is one of my favorite things because we are able to have these very candid and open conversations that are always provocative and always thought provoking, and I just appreciate you all taking the time this morning, or actually this afternoon, to be a part of this series. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And not even surgery keeps me from anything you put together, Dr. Barlow.